On Friday, November 15th, Netflix and Most Valuable Promotions bring you the highly anticipated heavyweight boxing mega event of the year. Jake El Gallo Paul will go toe-to-toe in the ring against Iron Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet. Don't miss this epic showdown from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Watch Paul versus Tyson, now streaming only on Netflix.
The new Apple Watch Series 10 is here. It has the biggest display ever. It's also the thinnest Apple Watch ever, making it even more comfortable on your wrist. And it's the fastest charging Apple Watch, getting you 8 hours of charge in just 15 minutes. Introducing the all-new Apple Watch Series 10, now available for the first time in glossy jet black aluminum. Compared to previous generation, iPhone XS or later required. Charge time and actual results will vary.
Hey, Holly.
Hey, Dave.
What is happening today on the What Difference Does It Make podcast?
Well, Dave, I'll be there for you.
All right. Like Jackson 5?
No, more like Allee Willis, the writer of the Friends theme song.
So you're a good friend is what you're telling me.
I hope that I'm a good friend.
You're a very good friend. And you're talking about this because Allee Willis...
She wrote the theme song. The Rembrandt sang it, but Allee Willis wrote it.
Yes, which I never realized until I saw this film, The World According to Allee Willis. It's a documentary that's coming out now. It's out now.
It's out now, and we are talking to the director, Alexis Spraic, and Prudence Fenton, one of the producers, and also Allee's partner. Allee passed away in 2019, and they have made this beautiful film, The World According to Allee Willis. And she had the most fascinating life, as we have learned.
If you are a fan of What Difference Does It Make and the music that we enjoy, you're going to love this film. We were fortunate enough to talk with Alexis and Prudence. We're going to talk to them shortly, but we're also going to talk about social media. Is that right? Did we do that? Can we be as creative as Allee Willis was?
Probably we're not so creative, but we're going to do our best, and we are going to show you some outtakes from this chat with Alexis and Prudence on our social media, on YouTube at What Difference Does It Make podcast, and on our other social media at WDDIM podcast.
I love it. So let's get into it. This is Alexis Spraic and Prudence Fenton. They made a film called The World According to Allee Willis on the What Difference Does It Make podcast.
Welcome. It's so nice to meet you both. The film is beautiful.
Thank you.
I enjoyed every minute and it left me wanting more. So thank you.
That's great to hear.
This film has been in production sort of for 40, 50 years. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, in Allee's sense of the word, yes.
She definitely started making it before I was even born, but very unique person in that she, from a very young age, if she bought a piano in 1969, she saved the classified ad. She saved everything, I guess, in anticipation of some kind of project. And then when she passed away, she left this posthumous wish that the trail she left behind be turned into a documentary. And by then, 72 years of an extremely prolific time. So there was a lot of material.
She was actually documenting. She was recording herself. How could she have known how interesting her life would be later on? She just had some knowledge of this?
I don't know. I never understood it. I never, the minute I met her, there was all this stuff about somebody following us around with a camera, always taking photos. And then, once Facebook and all that came out, it was just crazy.
Yeah. And I think looking at the material, because she really started having someone follow her in earnest in 1978. And, she was such a consummate artist and she was really fascinated with the creative process. And I think she felt like any moment that was missed, she had so much anxiety about a camera not being there. And I think it almost became like a companion. It was very social, had tons of friends and romantic relationships, but she did live by herself. And she would even record, kind of like a diary, because she'd get it sort of transcribed, but she would record audio and fall asleep doing it, just at home by herself. So I do think it made her feel less lonely somehow. Which is sort of funny because now with the way that the internet and social media is used, that behavior is kind of ubiquitous. But at the time, nobody was doing that.
Yeah, well, she was a pioneer, it seems, with social media or what have you, tech.
That was like an incredible thing. I mean, I was just describing it to someone and I was thinking about it like from her point of view. And Allie was like, she threw these incredible legendary parties. She'd bring together like sort of like the most interesting celebrities, but then also, you know, kitschy personalities, interesting artists. And she would create a theme that she really stuck to. And she would do like food and interactive activities, and people that we interviewed for the film would describe how they, you know, like even if you were the kind of person who's more of a wallflower at a party or who likes to sit back and observe, she'd find a way to draw you in to the action. And so she was always creating these kind of immersive worlds. You know, artists are often people with ideas that they're trying to, it's almost like a problem they're trying to solve of how to like manifest that idea. So when she started to get wind of the internet, I think for her, it was like, oh, this is a more efficient way to throw a party and to get people to interact and to immerse them. Whereas all these tech people were seeing like, I don't know, code or whatever they were doing. And so she would go up and pitch this idea she had for this kind of like, it was like a social network meets Facebook meets eBay. Like it'd be a virtual flea market and it would be a place to share videos like YouTube, all of these things that she was thinking about in like 1990 when nobody was even on email or anything. And then she'd go to Silicon Valley and pitch this with like, she was working with Prudence and with Mark Cuban. And these tech guys would be like, well, no one's ever going to buy anything on the internet.
Nobody's ever going to sell anything.
Tell exec, you know? And you're like, they could see is like, it's really hard to get on. It's slow. It's clunky. It wasn't like a sexy interface, you know, to get on the internet in the early days. Like you didn't see streaming and whatnot. But again, as an artist, I think just for her, it was like, she had a different kind of, you know, you have a vision for something. How do you execute it? How do you get people in? And so I think that was why she was able to see that so early.
So Prudence, can you tell me about like your first party that you went to? What was that experience like?
I was already going out with her. So it was like, you're part of the work crew and come over here and make the signs. I met Allie through Paul Rubens, and she flew up to San Francisco to meet me at my production company. And I was working for an animation company called Colossal Pictures. So I didn't meet her through her parties. It was like I was already with her when she threw her first party. And I had never seen anything like it. I mean, in a way, it was 3 or 4 weeks prepping for that party, doing art, doing souvenirs, figuring out what the theme was. It was really a balls to the wall production.
What were typical themes of these parties?
You know, make an hors d'oeuvre that matches your outfit. So somebody would come with a bowl of those little Pepperidge Farm fish in cream cheese that had been dyed blue, and it would match the blue in the dress. Or somebody would come as a Betty Crocker, would dress as Betty Crocker in that apron and then bring a cake. We just have to go through all the photographs. I mean, and then a lot of times one of them was a negligee party and everybody came in their pajamas and it was like an all-night party. And it was funny because I think Elvira came and the prize was a date with Tab Hunter. And I think she'd already been going out with him, or she'd broken up with him recently, and she ended up winning the prize. It was unbelievable.
First to come up with the ideas and then to execute it, they couldn't have happened that often, could they? I mean,
no.
So elaborate.
It was at least once a year. And towards the 90s, when she got into Willisville so much, there wasn't time to give a party. There also wasn't necessarily an excuse for a party. I mean, she always did birthday parties, and you know, one time it was everybody meets at Color Me Mime and make pottery.
We did a great birthday party for Prudence where Prudence wanted to do
soap carving.
And Lily Tomlin won with this like amazing thing where she just did some flakes of this kind of like beige, like yellow beige.
No, it was soap that looked like Parmesan cheese.
She said it was a Caesar salad during the lettuce strike. I feel like the one she did, you know, after she got written about by the Soviet government as being one of the most dangerous or the most dangerous person in the world, she did like a sort of Soviet Cold War themed party that was very funny, very subversive. And there's like a great story where she and Paul Rubens were, you know, they were like not just best friends, but they were running around.
They were meant for each other. It's insane.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my gosh, it's insane.
Yeah.
Like, they were so kindred. But they would just get into like, you know, trouble all the time. But they were like adults, but like little kids running around LA in that time, like getting up to things. when Paul and Allie, for some reason, I don't know if they were at an event or what, but they ended up at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and the bellboys wore those kind of almost like similar to the Russian style neckline, outfit. And so Paul convinced a bellboy to give him his uniform so that he could wear it to her Soviet kitsch party. It was a lot of creativity and fun and very little inhibition.
We were talking with Alexis and Prudence. They made a film called The World According to Allee Willis. And the world according to us is we need to take breaks. So let's do that right now.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Bored at home? Head over to Chumba Casino and join some serious social casino fun. With hundreds of games at your fingertips, no purchase necessary. You can play anytime, anywhere. There's a special welcome bonus waiting for you when you sign up. Play for fun, play for free, and you could even redeem some great prizes. Visit ChumbaCasino.com and get ready to reel in the fun. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Skinny Pop Popcorn. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Oh, so light and crunchy. Skinny Pop Original Popcorn is the snack you've been searching for. Made with just 3 simple ingredients: popcorn kernels, sunflower oil, and salt. Snacking never felt or tasted so good. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Give yourself permission to snack and pick up Skinny Pop Original Popcorn today.
And we're back on the What Difference Does It Make podcast with our guests, Alexis Spraic and Prudence Fenton. The story about the Soviet, why she was deemed to be this person.
It was great because she wrote this song called Neutron Dance, and it was like peak Cold War era, and they mistranslated the phrase neutron dance to neutron bomb. And the Russians or the Soviets weren't wrong, because I guess rock and roll did kind of take down the Soviet Union. And they were really scared of that kind of culture, and they translated the lyrics to make it sound like Allie was trying to, give subliminal messaging about nuclear annihilation or something, when really the song was about having agency in your life and making changes if you were unhappy. And it was the Pointer Sisters, and just like a very great, soulful, funky song. But she loved that. That became like one of her favorite ways to describe herself. So I guess even though it was meant to vilify her, Allie wore that badge.
A couple of her hit songs became just misinterpreted. Like you mentioned in the movie, Boogie Wonderland is like, I love to dance to that, but wait a second, dig a little deeper, and there's it's not exactly a boogie woogie type song,
Have you listened to the lyrics? She would always say.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, when we made the film, the document, Allie was like this extremely positive person, and she had this very flamboyant style, and she really invited other people just by showing up with her wild haircuts and her incredibly creative way of dressing, and this like cacophony of color and pattern, like, to be a little bit more extra or to take chances. But I think the part of it that we really uncovered making the film was that she had, like all of us, like just an internal struggle to love herself. And it was actually a lot harder for herself than she made it look. And that was a really kind of a profound discovery for us to realize, like, she'd been telling everyone the whole time in her song lyrics, none of her song lyrics, the music are these infectious hooks. And they're like these huge, September and Boogie Wonderland and these extremely fun songs. But she's working a lot of things out in all of them. And Boogie Wonderland is such an, interesting one, because it's someone who's like almost on the brink of suicide and really is unhappy with themselves and where they are in their lives. And so they just kind of escape into the disco and dance. But that's the part you hear, is the escape part of it.
That hook.
But I think, she talks about in the film, but also it was, I think, very important to her. Like, it was a way of reaching more people, because the music's so appealing and commercial, but then there's a message underneath it that helps, people want to be seen in art and understood and have their own experiences and struggles mirrored back to them. And she was so good at doing that with a turn of phrase. It was incredible.
A lot of people of our generation came to Allee through the Friends theme song, but then to go back, it's amazing that she wasn't, I know she's was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, but that she wasn't recognized in her own right so much earlier on that she deserved to be with everything she had created.
That to me was very puzzling because not only was she writing music that was amazing, and she was an amazing lyricist and melody, an amazing composer, but just the way she looked, like, why didn't some fashion person come see her? I mean, she did everything she could to be seen and then was not seen, not in the way she wanted.
I think that's really challenging because she didn't really fit into like a box. And I feel like in her early albums, she credited herself as Allee Willis, but she was actually trying to downplay her gender because it really did actually work against her. Most of the big breaks, this wasn't like something I knew going into it, but you look at every big break she had, every opportunity, and it's a woman or a person of color who saw her for her talent and her ability. There's still like a very, male dominated world in the music industry. And they just, especially when she was coming up as a young songwriter, she didn't look like what they wanted that person to look like who was making those sounds. And I think that was really devastating for her because she was breaking a mold, but that unfortunately didn't transcend the culture in the way that it should have.
Since everything was archived, Prudence, was there surprises that you found, like new discoveries on her personality or thoughts or talents?
Definitely, I never got the true story with Child Star. She had downplayed that, like she had only done 2 performances of it, and we found out she did a whole tour on the East Coast, and there were actually like 23 performances or something. And then Nick, the producer, found this tape and got it sort of clarified, or, he sent it off to get it cleaned up. And we found this interview that completely devastated her, all about how her sexuality was mixed in the projection, just what Alexis just mentioned. And I never knew that. She never talked about that.
It was painful. Is she blocking it out?
I guess so, or she'd moved beyond it. And even when she went back to be on stage after 37 years, my impression was it wasn't something that she really wanted. And then the more we sort of put everything together, it seemed like it was something that she really wanted. But we never had those conversations about that. I don't think we ever talked about that.
I think it's a big part of why she wanted a documentary done about her life. There were like a lot of things. Again, she was so positive. We interviewed her closest friends. They talk about how she always was lifting other people up. She would deal with dark things in her life. Like there's a great joke that she would make that's in the film from her one-woman show where, her father didn't approve of her association with Black culture. And of course, you can't write with Earth, Wind & Fire and Patti LaBelle and Pointer Sisters and not have a strong association with Black culture. And she just was so influenced by Black music. So she tells the story of how when her father was on his deathbed, the last thing she said to him was that I just got the gig to write the musical, The Color Purple, and he was gone within an hour. And it's really funny. I mean, it gets a big laugh. But then when you stop and think about it, you're like, oh my God, that is just the most heartbreaking thing. Like until the last breath her father drew, she never felt like he accepted or took pride in everything she'd accomplished. And I think if Allie couldn't find the joke, she couldn't find a way to frame it like that, she wasn't going to talk about it. And she didn't. And those were the things that we really uncovered. And I also feel strongly that she really did want them included in the film because she wrote a lot about her fear that she would lose her nerve and destroy everything. And things like the Child Star archive, it was just harder to find. But it was all very logical. Like we couldn't even find photos of her performing in that era. And that was when she first started to really experiment with a much more masculine presentation. And so people would hear this falsetto voice, her singing voice on the album. It got well reviewed. They loved the writing and the sound. And then they went to the show and she was being raunchy on stage and she had a deep voice and she was presenting in a much more masculine way. And that really turned off, especially the male dominated music critic world, right? They were extremely, now they can be cruel. It was really shocking to go back and read some of the stuff that was in print. It felt more like I was reading like troll comments or something, like but these people put their names on these words that they were writing about. And it just played into like the way that she felt this alienation from her body and the rejection by her father. I mean, it was her Achilles heel. It wasn't something I don't think she really fully resolved in her lifetime, but I think she understood that if it could be part of the film, that she would connect with more people who, if that's not their struggle, at least could understand that, like, even if she made it look easy to walk around in that world with that sense of self, the confidence and individuality, that it was actually hard for her to get there and that she was overcoming things. I think that's the part of the thing that she wanted that other person to tell the story for her, because she couldn't quite go to that vulnerable, fragile place herself.
So, Prudence, it must be rewarding for you to have it out there now, to know that the rest of the world gets to see what you saw or didn't see, parts that you didn't see during all your years together.
No, it's amazing. And the response is amazing. And I really just can't believe it. I'm sort of going, wow. The path was so clear that you almost feel like you didn't do anything because you just walked down the path.
So this connection, was that why she went full force into Willisville? This was like this new thing. Was this a way of her to connect with people outside and in different parts of the world?
I think a lot of it was to get something going that it was exciting, more exciting than writing music had become old hat, and she wasn't appreciated for it. And she talks about how she was doing it for years, but she was absolutely at the point of hating it. She didn't want that to happen, so she had to find something else. So when she hit the internet and understood the potential of the internet, that everybody was going to be on it and it was going to connect people, then she went, okay, this is a social thing. She saw it way before anybody else saw it. And I think that's why she worked so hard at it. And then when everybody started getting in on it, then it became less interesting to her because it still wasn't there yet. It was still too slow.
You mentioned briefly that she had an offer with Facebook. This could have been a
No, Facebook wasn't even around.
Oh, okay.
We had an offer with Microsoft.
That's
to
right.
go up there. Oh, both Microsoft and Intel, they just wanted us to do artsy stuff with their new technology. And that wasn't interesting. What was interesting was, really being on the web and creating social things or getting people to be creative. Like, there's nothing she loved more when YouTube came out and she could go and see people doing performances of September in their bedroom, either dancing in their pink pajamas and singing out loud. And it was just off. She loved that. She collected people doing her songs, and it was bad versions of her songs. But she felt like because they were just expressing themselves, she loved to see people express themselves. And that's what she wanted from the parties. And that's why she created themes where, people had to dress up or toss tampons into a basketball net or something, because it just loosened everybody up and brought out their little 6-year-old.
One September follow-up. I was wondering if she celebrated the 21st day of September. Was that a big day for her?
Oh, yes. Big time.
Okay.
Yes.
It made its debut at South by Southwest. I was at South by Southwest. I didn't see that movie. I did get to see the Diane Warren movie. And she's also like an outgoing personality, but just not organized at all. It was like the opposite of what Allie was like. Was she friends with Diane Warren? Was she friends with other songwriters, or specifically female songwriters? Could there be like a bond, like some sort of connection with
yeah, these? I remember having dinner a few times with Diane Warren. It was surprising they didn't write together, but I think Diane just never collaborated with anybody, and Allie collaborated with everybody. Mm-hmm. So no, she saw a lot of songwriters, and during times, she was always writing with different songwriters. Like, if you go to license a song of Allie's, there's at least one songwriter you have to share it with, if not 2 or 3 others. She loved writing with people. She loved collaborating.
I think she really learned about songwriting sitting on the lawn outside Motown, where you could hear them recording the music. She was a teenager and a preteen. You could hear the music coming through the walls because it was just this flimsy house. And that was the process. And I think that really stuck with her. And I was really amazed, just when I was working on the film, like her partners on the musical The Color Purple, Stephen Bray and Brenda Russell. You'd think with all that success and 3 people, like that there could be tension there and whatnot. And it's just like they're such a strong bond. Her ability to collaborate and to bring someone in who didn't really maybe even have that much musical talent or experience, like in the case, not to call him untalented, but inexperienced in the case of like Neutron Dance, and sit down in an hour and knock that out. That was just in her DNA.
So did she have a favorite outlet for her? Because you should, not just the songwriting but she created art as well, created physical art. Did she have a favorite outlet?
Well, I think she loved bubbles. Bubbles was her alter ego that was inspired by this really lame painter, or I shouldn't say lame, a primitive painter she found on eBay. And she goes, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing Bubbles. In 2020, her big plan was to bring Bubbles back and see what Bubbles' next period was. Because I think she loved painting and she loved the ceramics. I do think the Bubbles art that I have is absolutely genius. But we don't even talk about Bubbles in the film. I mean, Bubbles landed on the floor. It was way too much. That would be a whole series or a whole mini film just about Bubbles and the stories of all the characters. Because every Bubbles painting has a couple of paragraphs describing what's going on in the painting.
Yeah, no, I guess, I mean, in Holly, you do see the work in there by Bubbles, but it's just not, there was kind of a really fun section that we had to lose from the film because, RuPaul and Lily Tomlin are big collectors, and Lily gave this amazing interview about it because it was a very, she would paint 2 celery sticks with peanut butter or something, but then she would write the most hilarious thing about it. And it was just a little bit like, I don't know if people know, David Shrigley or artists like that, where there's something kind of high concept, or it's a little bit of a statement on the art world. She loved people who were kind of impervious to judgment or any kind of self-consciousness and could just go for it and put their all in. And I think that she almost was like a vampire for those people and artists. The more she had it around, the more she felt like she could also, shed those inhibitions. So that was a fun space for her. She created this alter ego and could just do stuff that was really stupid and mediocre. But then, of course, because it was Allee, it sort of always turned out like something more interesting.
That brings the question about just as a director to bring out this colorful world. Clearly, you have Prudence to help you out with sets and making sure colors are correct. Yeah,
she had her own sense of color. So, she had very much her own sense of design.
But I'm just saying, for the documentary, just kind of creating this whole Allee world, that whole design, the thought process.
We leaned into her aesthetic. More is more. We're very maximalist, and Allee's house is still intact. So we were able to film there a lot. And then in places in Los Angeles that, I think were Allee, that made you kind of looking at the world through Allee colored glasses, I would sort of say. And different types of different things that got her excited, whether it was vintage electronics. She loved TVs. She loved neon. She loved all of those things. So just incorporating that into how we shot things. And then we worked with an amazing graphic designer, Grant Nelson, who also really got that Allee's aesthetic and helped us amplify it when we needed to bring in our own graphics. But she left so much material. We were always trying to mine it directly. That was always our best bet.
Where can people view this film?
It's playing, Magnolia is releasing it theatrically, and they've done a great job. We're playing, for a week in Los Angeles and New York and Detroit and Dallas and a few other cities. And then we're playing a day and date on the 19th or 20th, depending, in about 30 other cities around the country. So if you're interested in seeing it, which I hope you are, go to the world according to AlleeWillis.com or go to Magnolia Pictures website, and you can see there's a very good chance that it's playing at an art house theater near your house. And then we'll be on VOD later, I think on the 22nd as well. But I do think it's with the music and Allee's visual sensibility, it's really fun to see with a like-minded audience and on a big screen.
And also, are we going to be throwing a movie release party, like an Allee-themed movie release party? Is that happening?
There was Prudence threw an amazing gala a few years ago because Allee's estate has been turned into a foundation that's helping support songwriters, especially young women, people of color, LGBT plus. And that was pretty incredible. There was a giant, I don't know how many feet high, it felt like 20-foot high Converse shoe for everyone to decorate with all the stuff and things from Allee's. It was an epic production, as good as a party could have been without Allee actually being here.
It was sort of a memorial that we never got to have because of COVID.
And we know you about your creativity. We did not mention it, but you were responsible for the graphics on MTV during our era. So we're familiar with your work.
Just a few of them.
Oh yeah, it is a powerhouse. There's she discovered Beavis and Butthead. She was she did those Peter Gabriel music videos. They're probably the most iconic music videos. All the MTV bumpers, Pee-wee's Playhouse animation title sequence. Just two soulmates, great artistic minds coming together.
Oh, for sure. One other question. I know you're Alexis, you're making a movie on the Magic Castle. I would imagine Allie would probably got a kick out of the Magic Castle if she.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I met Paul Rubens, better known as Pee-wee, working on that project. And then that's how I met Prudence and became involved. And Paul was a regular at the Magic Castle, as you can imagine. It's funny. I feel like I joke about it, but even with Allie's house or these parties, it's like a bat signal and you can find your tribe. Like you just sort of throw it out there and there's all these like-minded people that flock to it.
We're glad her story is getting told.
Oh, definitely come by the house. Definitely call me for a tour.
Oh,
all right.
We may just come.
You might be sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Take care and good luck with the film.
All right.
Thanks,
bye,
Alexis.
guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Alexis.
Take care. All right. Did that satisfy your craving after watching the film? Talking with our friends, Alexis and Prudence?
I could have used a whole lot more time with them. I feel like there were other probing questions. Allie also wrote the What Have I Done to Deserve This for the Pet Shop Boys.
That's right. We did not even talk about the Pet Shop Boys. As an 80s podcast, we failed you, the listener. We're so sorry. But it is true. Dusty Springfield and Pet Shop Boys, What Have I Done to Deserve This, was written by Allee Willis. Amazing.
They commented in the film as well.
By the way, we didn't even talk about the all-star lineup in this film.
No kidding.
Which was just bonkers. I mean,
Cyndi Lauper?
Clearly, Paul Rubens, of course, is in there. The guys from Earth, Wind & Fire, Verdine White, Lily Tomlin, Neil Tennant and Chris Loaf, of course, from the Pet Shop Boys. And,
they are the Pet Shop Boys.
And yes,
they're not from the Pet Shop Boys.
They are from the Pet Shop Boys. There was Mark Mothersbaugh. There was Pamela Adlon, who we love. She apparently worked with Allie.
Yeah, she was like her assistant really early on, and there's footage of Pamela in it.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Patti LaBelle.
Mark Cuban, by the way.
Mark Cuban. He was a big supporter of Allie.
Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, there is a wide variety of talent that had ties with Allie, which just kind of shows the breadth of her talents. I'm really happy that this film is out there now.
Thank you to Prudence and Alexis.
Yes, thank you to Chelsea Peters for helping us set this up. She comes from Giddensburg, Libby. Thank you to Holly.
And thank you, my friend.
Yeah, I'll be there for you, as we've established. And then if you want to learn more about what difference does it make, what would you do to find more out about us?
Well, you would go to social media at What Difference Does It Make podcast on YouTube and WDDIM podcast on other social media.
If you dare go to our website, WDDIMpodcast.com, you can sign up for our newsletter. And we put out something once a month so you can find out what you missed, get some extra tidbits. Who knows? I'll probably throw in some Allee Willis fun tidbits on our next newsletter. So why don't we wrap this up? Because I got a lot to do. So until then, this is Dave.
This is Holly.
Check you later.
Over and out.